We are about to use Mr. Color white for the very first time, 100% sober. The only drug I'm high on right now is life itself, baby. And also 2.5 of these. This is also a drug, I guess. This army has to be done this week, so we're gonna go very fast. Plan is to make all the vehicles white, both because the client requested it and because it'll make this really, really fast if we use this specific white. And then after, I'm gonna do shading, and then I probably won't go to the brightest white possible with this because I think we want a dry brush on top. So it looks like we edge highlighted when we did not. I feel like dry brushing like a final coat in that way is the equivalent of like when you go to a restaurant that's serving like street food, but they put a really nice garnish and like plate it well with like a drizzle so they can charge $15 more for it. I feel like that's what we're doing here with this white. It's gotta look nice. You gotta plate your miniatures, especially if you're doing a commission, but in general, you gotta plate your miniatures. I think this airbrush is like on its way out too. When I release the trigger, it like keeps going for a little bit. It's a fun new problem to have. Here, I'll start painting and come back. So yeah, I still don't know what the right ratio is for this thinner and this color. I've been finding like about 1:1 works pretty good for my purposes. Probably a little bit more paint than thinner, but something close to 1:1 because this paint is very thick. And I'd rather have it be too thin than clog completely. Like this. Oh cool, it clogged anyways. This needle's so bad. And not changing the angle we're spraying from too much helps create like an illusion of shadows. In CG, it's called like ambient occlusion. I feel like that's kind of what we're generating here. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. And then yeah, the same kind of approach works for this guy too. They're white now. It was really easy. This is a super basic paint job, but I think it looks good for like, I don't know, it was probably like 5 minutes to get to this point, if that. It's really basic. Yeah, for 5 minutes of painting, pretty good. All right, so next we're gonna try some silver out on the wheels and the little mining laser and these guys. And then I'm gonna start doing some weathering, basically. This is Mission Models silver. It's high-speed silver. Kind of doesn't matter what silver metallic you use here. I want to pick out the wheels and the gun parts, and if I overspray a little, it's going to look fine, because these guys are all about vibes. That's our intent here. We're trying to look max vibes, and it doesn't really matter if it's insanely clean or not. I'm going to apply a vibe coat of silver now. Just vibe, a little vibe there. Maybe the underside a little bit. Some of like the black areas I'm gonna paint silver too, because the silver's got like a gray tone to it. The silver is like a good mid-tone between the black and the white, so we can also use it just to establish wherever we want like mid-tones in the model. Like this grade is good for both because I want a mid-tone there and it looks nice metallic. Same with these guns, kind of. Painted them so fast, you looking handsome. And, oh fuck, I just added a bunch of silver flakes by accident. Whatever, it looks like chipping, it's fine. God damn it. Part of the reason I'm using silver here instead of bronze is because the overspray from the bronze would be a lot more distracting. Even though bronze would probably be a nicer contrast, we're going for speed first and foremost. And if I get silver on the white, it's like not a big deal at all. But if I get bronze everywhere, it's a disaster. And I'm spraying this little underside carriage, obviously. Just trying to get anything that's like not the main white part of the body or the riders. Kelomorph, we're just gonna do like his guns and these little knee pads. Like that, and that. I get this blade too. And then I'm still gonna do some details by hand, like this thing I want gold, which just as fast to do by hand as it is with airbrush. Probably faster by hand actually. So I just went back over the tires and the gun tips with black ink because I want to do this before we do our weathering. I want the tires to be weathered over black, so I don't want to like weather them now. I have to paint the black over later because it's easier to just do all the weathering on everything at once. Now we have to answer the question of what our weathering actually is. Before we do that actually, I think I might do a little bit of a gradient of like purple here, going back on the gun with purple ink. I've been really liking this stuff. It's AK Night Purple. Yeah, and then after that, I'm just gonna put some like brown tones and then do some like enamels and yeah, weathering powder on the base. So for the purple, it's going like that and that Yeah, something like that. I got too excited about purple and applied way too much to this guy, and it was a mistake. But you know, when you're painting, that's just how it is sometimes. Yep. Obviously haven't tested the scheme anywhere. We're just winging it, and there's too much purple now. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I just had extra purple and I thought it would be exciting to spray it, and it was. And then there was a wave of regret that wafted over me and remains until this moment. So yeah, we're gonna just like apply some brown and bury that forever. I think actually before we weather, I might dry brush this white and see how that feels. Hopefully it feels good. Let's find out. Dry brush, hope I don't ruin you with this dry brush. The edges. Very similar process to the squigs I painted the other week. Yeah, that's fine. I might even be able to go a little heavier. This is a Monument Hobbies titanium white that I'm using here, if anyone's curious. Or Pro Acryl, yeah, I don't know. I never know if I should call it by the brand or the line. It's these ones, the fun little dropper bottles. I'm just mostly going over the edges. Anywhere I want to bring more attention to. Up next, we're gonna fuck around and find out with this dark brown Vallejo wash, and this one, the orange one. Big surprise, the two light rust washes I use in every video. They're back, and I think we're gonna throw in eventually some contrast paint, thin down with medium, just to create like different like brown tones and stains, make these fellas look a little grimy. Going over the guardrail and some of the metal areas too, just to distinguish them from the white a little bit more. This is sort of like going for a brass feel, but it's less egregious if we overspill than if I were to like be actually airbrushing bronze on here. Plus anywhere I feel like there would like naturally be like dirt or dust or rust would accumulate. Yeah, like down here by his feet. He's a dirty boy. He's not taking his boots off before he steps into his construction vehicle. This Ridgerunner is not an Asian household. Do stay on inside. This guy is still kind of a mystery to me. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Frankly, I'm just applying random colors and hoping I don't hate it. And hoping that guides us with some sort of voice as to what to do next eventually. So far, inspiration hasn't struck, and I hope it doesn't stay this way forever. It's just kind of purple-brown arbitrarily. I always want to paint the entirety of every model only using an airbrush, but I feel like we've reached the most reasonable place that we can stop without just making more work for ourselves by stubbornly refusing to stop using the airbrush. So I'm gonna switch over to enamel and acrylic by hand now. I'm gonna apply some black oil, probably actually too, just in the recesses of these guys. I'm just scrambling to find my oil right now so I can show you which one I use. Is this one. Yeah, it's just an artist oil color. Brand doesn't matter super much, to me at least. And then I've got this like orangey one I'm gonna use too. And this little guy is great for doing like streaks, hence the name, streaking brusher, rust. Then I have some odorless thinner that I'm using as well. And I'm just gonna like mess around and target the crevices. The reason why enamels and oils are great, or why, like if you haven't used them before, is because they are kind of like a wash where they just like find the cracks and cling to them super well, but they also wipe off the surface even easier than like an acrylic wash would. So it's gonna make it like super easy to pick out all this detail and have it look nice and recessed. And we're also gonna pick out some of this armor by hand and make it white. And yeah, probably just do those like little cloth areas black by hand. I feel like calling this stuff odorless thinner is a cruel joke. It definitely fucking smells. It's not as bad as the odor thinner for sure. Less odor, but not free of odor. I'm just like sensitive to smells though. Bad condition to have if you're into weathering. So just taking the oil and our thinner and a pretty beat up cheap brush and applying it to the recesses, just like that. And you can wipe it. Probably you shouldn't use your finger. The paper towel on top. Repeat everywhere until you're tired of doing so or it looks good enough. Yeah, this stuff is just like a fancier known oil though. It's like if known oil is Panda Express, then oil paints are PF Chang's. And your nose is the one who has to pay for the bill. Oil paint's famously not great for you. Or more so all the solvents and shit you use with them. But if you are worried, you can use a respirator. I like often use one, but for this step, I think it's fine today. Another thing I like to do a lot is just like draw little streaks like this. too much. Usually you want to use a brush with a sharpened point, but yeah, I can just do it. It's fine. This brush is like kind of on its way out, so it's a little more difficult. And the cool thing about the oils is like you can just reactivate them with more thinner, like really easily, at least for a long time. So if you mess up a streak, just take some thinner and then like keep spreading it out. Experiment with making it like thinner or changing the angle that the streak is facing a little bit. So we got a bunch of brown and black streaks. These are oil paints, so they take a really long time to dry. You should wait 24 hours before putting anything else on top of them and varnishing them, but we're gonna apply some decals and ignore that step because we're in a big time crunch. Imagine painting a Warhammer army with less than 72 hours to complete it. Couldn't be me. This is just like a sheet of like random military numbers I have. It's like a third-party decal sheet. I think we're gonna use these just to distinguish the number Ridgerunner for fun. And then I also have these from Fallout Hobbies. They're like little like vinyl sheets that you can spray on these like arrow templates. Not sure if I want to do that or not yet, but I brought them here and I'm gonna think about it. One of these in red could be really cool, or it could just like hook up a few hours worth of work. I want to start with the decals first and see how that goes. My decal process is pretty simple. I use these two, Microsol and Micro Scale. What is this one called again? I don't know. Decal film, yeah. So I applied this one first, put the decal on top, and then when it's done, I put the Microsol over it. What the Microsol does is it makes it seem like, as the bottle describes, it has a painted on look, and it softens them a little bit to conform to weird surfaces. And we follow that up with a coat of varnish on top. I'm just gonna spray the whole thing down with satin varnish at the end. So just to do one example decal, we've applied our micro set to this little area, which reactivated a lot of the oil paint. This is why you should wait, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take our little number 1, slide it off. I don't know why the 1 is so much smaller than the 2. The 2 is fucking massive, and the 1 is just like this tiny thing that barely reads as a number. Here, I'll put a symbol next to it so it looks cooler. I slide it around with X-Acto blades, which is kind of risky because sometimes you can like cut them or cause air bubbles, but I like to live on the edge. Yeah. It's like easier to position them with than with like a soft brush. Using something stiff makes it easier to like slide them around. Just pour a little bit in the cap, go blop blop blop, and cover the decal. Oh fuck. Fuck. Sorry, I've never applied a decal in my life. I was lying. There we go. We saved it, sort of. And more carefully this time. Apply the micro set, and now when it dries it'll look less like a sticker and like it's like painted on a bit. I'll apply the rest and then cut back at the end. This is a step I'm only doing because this is the early stage of painting. We still have enough time ahead of us that I feel like being a little extra. I'm gonna apply some edge highlights really fast. And I think one thing that people don't realize is like edge highlights only have to take as long as you want them to. I think it's fine to like edge highlight very selectively quickly if you want to and not do it everywhere and not have it look weird. Like there's other ways to do it besides the heavy metal approach. And very quickly, just do little lines. And even like, I'm gonna skip this one because it's like at a weird angle and harder to paint. I don't think it'll be noticeable. I'm also not doing the entirety of each edge. We're just doing like 1/2 to 3/4 of each section. Paint's pretty thin. Just like that. When you do it everywhere, it'll look nice. This is something I try and accomplish with dry brushing a lot of the time too, but because I like how our weathering looks and the oil's still like drying a bit, I don't really want to dry brush it now. And the edge highlighting honestly does not take that much longer, at least for like this specific model. Some models are trickier to do this with than others, but for this guy, he's pretty fucking easy to just pick out a couple edges for. This is something I do with metallics a lot, but because this is a white vehicle, I wanted to try it with white too. I'm just taking a little bit of like foam and eliminating most of the paint from the foam after dipping it and just creating like a little spongy texture. This is really great for, yeah, silver and black typically, for employing paint chips, but I think for reasons I can't explain in real world concepts, it just looks nice. This is not how like chipping would work IRL, but it looks sick, so we're gonna do it. Just a little bit, less is more. And I'm gonna repeat this process with silver and black too. I'm gonna dry brush some of this Pro Acryl Copper on. If you're someone who's not playing a lot of games, I would do this after varnishing because varnish always dulls down metallics a little bit, but I have a feeling these are gonna be used in a lot of games, so I'm gonna apply it now. The next step after this is gonna be putting some of this dirty down rust on. It's great, it saves a lot of time, it looks insane. And they also have a really good like verdigris color that I might slap on after this copper too. So areas I want to focus on are parts of the weapons to make them feel like a little more detailed, parts of the railing here, and then maybe some details on the dudes themselves. This color morph also needs some love. I've been kind of like ignoring him so far. I feel like he's been neglected compared to the vehicles. We're gonna take this really nice brush that's been turned into a dry brush, which is a sad fate. I always feel a little bit bad about once it comes to that point in a brush's life cycle, and try not to feel too bad about it. This pipe down here is a surface that makes sense to me to be copper. I guess it's not really dry brushing, is it? It's like a bit more than dry brushing. I think this used to be called overbrushing. I think it's a term that I don't really hear that much anymore, but it's sort of between a dry brush and a like application of a new layer or base coat. So like here, I'm covering almost all of this. Like there's really not that much dryness going on here, but I'm leaving a little bit of the paint underneath Xasthur too, or actually a lot of the paint underneath Xasthur. And the main reason, well, just two reasons. One, because I think it looks a little bit nicer than if it's a solid color, and it also takes less time. I'm primarily doing it because it takes less time than if I were to like very carefully paint this a solid color bronze. But I like the way it looks when you have like a little bit of the old color showing through underneath. It just makes it feel weathered and grimy. Yeah, I'll throw some on the gun too, fuck it. Just feel it out. These fellas down here. I'm so glad most of this model is just like one big color. There's a lot of little details you can get lost in here if you want to though. So for dirty down, there's a lot of different ways you can apply it. The most important thing before you apply it though is to mix it a lot. I have a vortex mixer, this guy here, which is conveniently blocked by my light. There we go. Yeah, it's a very silly motion and sound, but it's great for mixing paints. I mean, you can just shake it by hand a lot, obviously, too. If you don't mix it enough, then it's gonna come out looking weird. I used to use it a lot and not mix it enough, and it looked bad. And then I mixed it, and I was like, damn, that's a huge difference. I have two kinds that I'm gonna use right now. There's the normal rust and the yellow rust. They both react a little bit differently. The yellow rust tends to dry with like a really bright yellow line in the recesses. I feel like it works better with water than this one. They both work great with water, though. I tend to start light, see how a little bit looks when it dries. It changes how it looks a lot over the course of its drying time. So this is a very Tyler move I do for basically every model I paint now. If you have something that's really grim and grungy, something that's a nice contrast to it is adding super bright OSL. I'm gonna be using green, I think. I think neon green would look nice for the headlights. But first we apply this by hand in all the small spots and by an airbrush in all the big ones. So like I'm debating doing their visors. I think I'll probably do their visors a bright green. And then airbrush like the headlights down here, and maybe even airbrush this little guy. Probably too small for an airbrush, but I think it's spilling over would be cool to do like in that area. Damn, my finger's black. And it'll provide really bright, interesting looking color that will help your models look pro. Oh, here it is, thank God. And this is the green we will be using. This is fluorescent green by Golden Acrylic. So the reason why you do white first is because the fluorescent paints tend to look pretty dark and not as good if you put them over a black base coat. You have to put a million layers and it still won't look as good even if you do that. It's way easier to just do white first to have a really bright surface to paint on, and then you go in with your bright paints. Yeah, and once you got your white applied, take your favorite oversaturated color and blast it in there. And look at that. It looks like you would have won a Golden Demon anytime before 2015. One of the easiest, nicest looking things that you can do to spice up a model. After this, I'm gonna go in by hand, I think, just because most of these areas are a little small. If it's a big one, you can do it with the airbrush still, but I'm just gonna take some green ink and then like trace it so that there's a dark part. But I mean, that's kind of optional. You can just leave it alone at this step if you want to, if you're looking for that like super bright feel. All right, these are getting pretty close to done. I added a bunch of highlights to this fella. It's nothing crazy. I guess maybe I should have recorded that. He's painted almost entirely with like airbrushing and washes though. The only things I really did were just like touch up the cloak a little bit and like his face and limbs by hand. Yeah, he's mostly just airbrushing washes with them. I think like I wanted to go harder on him, but I'm also worried about him standing out too much from like the rest of the infantry because we were painting an army here and we want it to look cohesive more than anything. So I also don't want to like paint to a standard which I don't think I can repeat en masse for the rest of the units. So I think we're gonna call him here for now. And if we want to add more later, we can always just go back. Mostly I want this whole army to look like sick and cohesive and like match itself. I'm gonna try and do the bases next. Something I've been doing a lot recently is just using weathering powder to do the bases. So I'm gonna take a few different kinds and use Gamsol from a spray bottle in order to do it. Sorry, this song is very distracting, like sonically. This is like an alarm going off. Yeah, I'll just go over that whole process step by step. So our bases are zenithal too. At first I was gonna make this look like the surface of the moon, but I think something that's not white would look better. In general though, I'd probably want to do this step anyways, because it's better to do this, in my opinion, over a brighter base than one that's like completely black. We have a variety of different weathering powders. Ooh, I gotta grab a dust mask before we do this too. Before us. So we got our large assortment of different kinds of weathering powders, and I'm just gonna take a big brush and apply them to the base one by one. Using a variety of different colors is great. This is fine. I usually use a smaller brush, but these bases are huge, so this is fine. I haven't found like a best order in terms of like doing it like light to dark or whatever. I kind of just like go crazy and keep applying until I'm happy with it. I've gone over this in other videos before, but in case you are new here, that's like a dark brown. Take our terracotta, apply a little. I'll just do one side so it's easier to see. Take our brighter color. Take our I guess not as bright color. Take our medium bright color. And I'm putting a lot on here because quite a bit of this will probably come off in the like varnishing steps that we do after this. So it's better generally, in my opinion, to put too much and then like take it off because yeah, we're gonna lose like a reasonable amount of it. And you can do this with any color you want, obviously. I'm just using brown for these guys. But if you want to do like just gray for like a city base or something, that would be totally fine too. So our base is all mucked up. They're nice and dirty and dry. And now we're gonna make them wet. This little spray bottle I have here. So this is just filled with Gamsol. Where is my big bottle of Gamsol? I should probably show what that is. This stuff. It's a 100% pure odorless mineral spirits. And then again in Italian or Spanish, I'm not sure. You just pour that into a little spray bottle and then go spritz, 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 like it's a house plant or a naughty cat. Here, I'll show you on this one. We got our Gamsol, we got our dirty base, and you just go poop, poop. And it'll look really dark. That's because it's, you know, getting wet. And when it dries, like you're gonna lose a little bit of that color and density of powder, but it won't look like as dark as this either. Yeah, that's it though. I just leave it alone for a while. I don't really know what the drying time is. I just typically just like stop for the day when it's this time. Come back to it the next day or like maybe in like, I don't know, like 4 hours I could check and it's probably cool by then. But yeah, just give it a little bit to dry off. And then after this, we are going to varnish, paint the base rim, and that'll be it. That's it. That's the whole thing. We painted the whole dang car. The whole damn thing. If you want to watch more videos from me, I'll be making more. This is all I do now. I had to do that Orc Boy video. I'm going to keep saying it so that someone would be like, where's the Orc Boy video? You haven't published it, and it's been 2 years. There's also going to be a raffle for that one. If you want to win an Orc Boy, you can go to my Patreon and subscribe for a $5 tier membership. And if you do that, I'm going to give somebody an Orc Boy. Or at least, I mean, I'll probably give it a couple. I got a lot of them to spare. I'm also selling merch through Orchidate. It's like Bricky and Friends company. If you want to buy stickers, probably soon hats and objective markers. But right now, stickers and hoodies and t-shirts. You go down there and buy one. And that's it. Goodbye.